Good evening, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed a beautiful weekend. I certainly did. And I hope you're as eager to get started on our school leadership journey or school improvement in the 21st century journey together. I'm recording this on Sunday evening, the evening before we begin our class time together, and in hopes that you'll all have as much time as you need to really dive into the material. Hopefully by now, you've all read through the syllabus for the course objectives, mission statement, etc., and that you've had a chance to review the modules that we'll be using as our guide for the next several weeks, next 8 weeks. We're going to dive right in with the first module. This module focuses specifically on effective schools research, systems thinking, and change. And I think you all probably know, because you've been in this program for a while or you've been educators for a while, that each of those three things are critically important for school leaders to be adept at and to be knowledgeable about. For this first module, you're going to spend a fair amount of time reading in the beginning. Hopefully you've discovered that the Handbook for School Improvement, while it has a lot to read, it's not the most difficult of readings you'll do in your graduate program. So don't be intimidated by the fact that you need to read 8 chapters during this module. I've also provided you a number of articles to supplement our discussions and to supplement your knowledge. And so please make sure that you go through each of those, reading them closely. The expectation is that you're going to be able to use them in your school improvement project papers. So chapters 1 through 8 begin with 4 essential questions. How do we develop a school organization and culture that promotes and sustains learning? How do we lead for continuous improvement? How do we encourage and enable teachers to engage in the kinds of behaviors that are linked to increased student achievement? And lastly, what leader behaviors are linked to increased student achievement? The author spends some time detailing 10 conditions, 10 school conditions and 5 teaching strategies that are most prevalent in high-performing schools. And I've supplemented that with an article from Lawrence Lazat, who for many years has been heralded for his research on effective schools. And he provides 7 correlates for effective schools: safe and orderly environment, high expectations, strong instructional leadership, etc. And so I think you'll enjoy reading that article as well. It's what I've used in a number of my school improvement efforts over the years. When I need a reboot, when I feel like we've gotten stale or that my team needs to refocus, I've tended to turn toward Lazat's correlates as a good place to start. The authors move on to attempt to define what the characteristics are for high-performing principals. That's what we all hope to be high-performing in whatever role that we play: teacher, school leader, principal, superintendent. In the context of this class, we're going to consider not just the principalship, although that really is where these courses are designed to propel you toward. We know that not all of you are going to become assistant principals and principals, and so when I say principals, please know that I'm referring also to assistant principals, to team leaders, department chairs, central office supervisors. Anyway, so the authors of the text spend a fair amount of time defining what it takes to be high performing in the context of schools. So they talk about the leader needing to be a model for learning, needing to be an exemplar of the field's standards for learning. Remember, those of you who are with me in the summer, or excuse me, in the spring, I talked a lot about the fact that you are, when you're in a leadership position, you're always being watched, and I think that these two characteristics are examples of that. People are looking to model themselves either after what you do or maybe to model themselves after what you don't do or what they wouldn't do. Principals of these high-performing schools or leaders in these high-performing schools um, associate themselves with teaching practices that are designed to increase student achievement. So are they grounded in best practices? Does the work that they do lead to, or is it designed to lead to having the maximum impact on student achievement, students being at the center of everything that we do? These leaders engage in ongoing collaborative study. Um, PLCs are not just for teachers, they're for teacher leaders as well. And some of the more powerful change that has been brought to the schools that I've led has come as our leaders have learned together. Um, these teachers use a systems development approach to dispatching with administrative or managerial responsibilities. You've got to decide, are you going to be a leader or are you going to be a manager? And what's the difference between the two? And that's something that the research really suggests that you need to wrestle with as you make decisions about what your leadership paradigm is going to look like. And lastly, leaders of high-performing schools empower teams. They work collaboratively. They problem solve collaboratively. They work, as I said, in small communities and among incredibly strong people. I often have thought that the reason I've had a fair amount of success in my career is not because I'm any smarter than anybody else, but because I hire really well. And so I think it's fair to say that principals of high-performing schools probably do the same. In the Blackboard module, you'll find, as I said before, under the 4 modules column, links to all of the articles that I'm asking you to review. And you'll also find a number of PowerPoint presentations. These are designed to extend your thinking. The first is related to the 7 correlates of effective schools, a little bit of a deeper dive into systems thinking. And then the second PowerPoint is about leading for change. And it's really meant to help you as a leader think through what those you're leading may need from you as you lead for change. There's also links in that module for the discussion forums, for your learning logs. I'll talk about those in just a bit. And lastly, for the first part of your school improvement project. So let's start with discussion boards. For this session, I've posted 5 questions for you to respond to. I want to remind you that I'm handling discussion boards differently than I did for our spring class. And so many of you were with me in the spring. I feel it's necessary for me to tell you that. Discussion boards are really the place where we are going to go to interact most frequently and hopefully most meaningfully as a class. And so you're being assessed not just on quantity, how often you go in to the discussion board, but also quality of your work. How much thought did you really put in to that response? Reminder that I am asking that you visit the discussion board at least 3 times each week. So 6 times during a module is the minimum you really want to look to as you engage in these discussion board threads. This is where you'll have a chance to interact with your fellow students, with me, with the content a little bit. You can ask questions of me, certainly be able to share work, offer each other criticism and support, maybe make some connections between different posts that different members of the class make. And lastly, it's a good springboard for you to use as you begin to reflect on your learning. The learning logs are where you're going to extend or expand on those reflections. Please take some time to read through the explanation for the learning logs. This is where you're going to be personalizing everything that you've read and every conversation you've engaged in the previous weeks. Reminder, you're required to make at least 2 entries in each module, so a total of 8, but you're not limited to 2. When I've done learning logs in the past, I've had students who have chosen to use this with much greater frequency. It's really up to you, but the minimum is 2. Last, a word about your school improvement project. Um, you should begin right away identifying 5 members of your school community to interview about the school improvement process for your school. From those interviews, you're going to analyze the data, it's the responses to the questions that you ask, and you're going to summarize in a narrative form the strengths and the weaknesses of the school improvement process in your school. Where there's weaknesses, I'm asking you to make suggestions for how to improve, or how the school's leadership team can improve. That's sometimes hard. We live in our schools. We're very married to our to the way things work in our schools. It's sometimes hard to really think through what is exactly a weakness and what could we do to make things better. But as you walk into a new building as a new leader, that's exactly one of the things you may be asked to do. In fact, I have a new assistant principal coming to join me in just a few weeks. He's actually going to be a principal intern. And one of the first things I asked him to do was to do his research, to look at our data. And I provided him a lot of information. And I've said to him, on day 1, I want him to come in with his plan for the first 90 days. What is he going to do to help me better understand the weaknesses of our building, to better understand the strengths of our building? And if he were the principal, if I were to walk out the door, what would he do to make things better? And so it's something similar to what I'm asking you all to do. You don't need a 90-day plan. You just need to write a 4 or 5 page paper. Please make sure that you turn these things in on time. If you need help figuring out where to turn these things in, I'm happy to show that to you. It's relatively easy to do. There's a link in the Blackboard site for you to do that. Have fun. This material is this is a fun class, and the material is, I think, among the more interesting that we teach in the leadership development program at McDaniel. Don't be shy in reaching out to me. Send me an email, send me a text message, give me a call. I'm here to help. We're going to see how this works out asynchronously. I've been told that this course is supposed to be taught fully asynchronously to allow each of you to work at your own pace. A couple of you have already asked if I could have some check-in times online through one of the online platforms, and I'm happy to do that if we decide that it's needed. But I also wouldn't be surprised if you discovered a few days in that it's not really necessary. We'll see as we go along. Have fun, enjoy. I'm looking forward to reading your posts, especially in the discussion board. And with that, I'm going to end our first asynchronous video. Have a great night, and I will see you in the threads.